Hello and welcome to the course. I'm your host today, Lee, and I'm speaking with Assistant Professor Yuehaw Khoo from the Department of Statistics. He is also a member of the Committee on Computational and Applied Mathematics. Professor Khoo is here to talk to us about his career path and how he became a University of Chicago professor. Professor Khoo, welcome to the course.
Thank you.
I want to start by asking you about your career path. Can you give me a general overview of your college years all the way to becoming a professor at U Chicago?
I started my undergrad at University of Virginia, and I was mechanical engineering major. And then I started to have a feeling that maybe I would like to study something that is more theoretical. So I start venturing into the field of physics and mathematics. And I somehow just like to sit around and think a lot. That's how I ended up in grad school doing a PhD. I've never put together thoughts of entering academia until like fourth year or fifth year in doing my PhD, because I always thought that probably not capable of entering academia because it's really cutthroat. But somehow it ended up that way. I would say it's not by planning.
And how would you explain your research to someone who doesn't understand anything about it, just to a regular person?
So what I do is I use computational techniques to either simulate physical processes, usually at a microscopic scale, or I use experimental data to reconstruct certain phenomena at a microscopic scale. One example is I like to study molecule a lot. So a lot of my focus is using computational technique, either to extract the structure of a molecule from data or try to use computational technique to simulate the physical laws that govern the physical process at a microscopic level.
Yuhao, I want to ask you a little bit about what you were like when you were younger. Can you tell me about what you were like as a student during your middle and high school years?
During the middle or high school year, actually, I originally come from Malaysia, and then during middle school, I moved to China because my parents they moved, so I kind of get unplugged from a familiar environment. So I wasn't doing very well in school, so I just play a lot of video games. Like I play a lot of like Warcraft 3, Counter-Strike, and play a lot of sports until I reach college. But then I guess this is something I mentioned before. I find like somehow the challenge that in physics or math posed to me, it seems more exciting than playing games. So that's why I started to venture into this area. And I think one thing that's very important during my college life is I become less outgoing, and I kind of like spend a lot of time in my room thinking about just things. I think that has to do with somehow my religious belief. And I became a Christian as an undergrad, and that somehow led me to be more introspective about things. Yeah.
And before college, did you have any idea what you wanted to be when you grew up?
I think since young, I always kind of wanted to be a zoologist for some reason. Like I really like animals, and I just really like to study everything about different kinds of animals, like about their habits and everything. But I think it's really until somewhere close to college, I start to find like excitement from abstract thinking. Yeah.
And how I think a lot of people listening to this might feel a little less intimidated by hearing that you weren't necessarily the best student and you were someone who liked to play video games. I think people have this perception of professors as, almost otherworldly, as super smart and people that have always been great students. But it sounds like that wasn't the case for you. It's something that you came to later on in your academic career. Is that right?
Yeah, that's, I would say, very late, probably almost towards the end of my PhD. I started to feel that this is something that really gives me passion, and I'm somewhat good at it. Yeah.
And was there any particular person in your life who supported you and helped you overcome any challenges that came your way as you were pursuing a profession in academia?
I think in academia, well, first and foremost, my parents are pretty unconventional that they kind of let me do whatever I want to do. When I say unconventional, I mean, well, conditioning on parents back in Asia that they usually tend to have more say on the career path of their kids. But my parents are really freestyle. They let me do whatever I like to do. Although my dad kind of hoped that I go into some finance related sector when I graduated from undergrad, but I told him, well, I wanted to do physics. So he just kind of laughed a little bit and then say that, well, if you're smart enough, well, why don't you go ahead? So my parents have been very supportive and trust my pursuit all the time, although it sounds a little bit crazy sometimes. I think the most important person definitely has been my advisors at different stages of my life. My undergrad advisor, Gordon Cates, who really helped me to get into a very good graduate program. Who because the first year when I applied to grad school, I got rejected almost everywhere, possibly due to the 2008 crisis in stock market. So then the next round, he really spent a lot of energy in pushing me to a very good place. Then my PhD advisor, I think, yeah, Ahmed Singer, he was also very influential and able to place me very well when I was for my postdoc position. Then again, my postdoc mentor does the same thing. So Lex Ying, he managed to place me to a very good at U Chicago for my faculty position. I'm really grateful to them. They teach me, these advisors, they really teach me many different aspects on from like how to conduct research and how to have a vision about a research program and they're just kind people and want their students to succeed. And sometimes I find it difficult to say this as an academic, but as I mentioned, I mean, my religious faith has I know has vividly led me on this path in my time in my quiet time with God.
Yeah, how do you think religion has helped you find your purpose or find this particular career path for yourself?
Well, I think to me, my journey as a Christian is more like a humbling experience. I think what I get out the most is that there are many things in life, especially my path towards academia is really something that is not dependent on me, but everything is in the control of God, and really it's not about me. It's there's if it's just because of me, there's no way I can achieve whatever achievement I had. And he puts a lot of people around me and really a lot have happened. It's really just it has really little to do with my own effort or my aptitude or anything like that.
That has to be a really helpful perspective in a field that's filled with so many egos, and where I imagine, as you said earlier in our conversation, is pretty cutthroat.
Yes, it is indeed a very cutthroat field. And sometimes I do need a lot of quiet time in order to pacify my thoughts from joining the competition too fiercely. Yeah.
And you, how, why did you decide to become an academic, and why specifically in the realm of statistics and computational and applied mathematics?
I entered this field. Well, again, it's almost a little bit random. I'll say I started my grad school in physics, in experimental physics. However, I started to find that experimental physics is not what I used to think about physics because when I was undergrad, I learned physics from textbook and the theories are beautiful. But then when I started my grad school in experimental physics, the day-to-day job is really different from the type of experience you get from reading a physics textbook. A lot of times, I'm just doing like a plumber work, fixing some pipe, and or like just trying to wire some circuit board. And on a day-to-day basis, there are very little physics involved. So after 2 years of my grad school, I decided to, hey, maybe I want to do something that is more directly related to like the theory that I learned in book. So then I decided to change to start to switch gear a little bit, and then that's how I ended up in doing a computational math physical sciences problem.
What in general inspires you about the type of work and research that you do? What about this field is so compelling?
In computational math, there are many type of application. Basically, one can apply computation to almost everything. There are people doing computational this, computational that, and my focus is really on computational problem associated with structure and dynamics of a molecule, or even at the level of electronic structure. What I what really inspired me about this field is that the results and the equations that you are computing about is more eternal than other types of equations. For example, there might be equations about, let's say, let's just give an example, weather. But this type of equations are based on a lot of time are temporary, are based on the convenience for modeling. But then I think equations in physics really makes me feel like there's something long lasting, and everything I compute about it is I have a feeling that, I mean, I'm still far away, but every time I compute something out of it, I felt like touching something very close to the truth. But well, although I know I'm very far, but that's the feeling I get.
And you how do you have any personal goals for yourself that you feel comfortable sharing? Any professional things that you aspired to do?
I would say really not. I just hope that I can enjoy the most out of it. To be fair, the part of the job that I find it most enjoyable is that I get to read about anything I like to read, and I get to work on anything I like to work on. I think that's the part I like the most out of this job, and I just hope that it will stay the way it is. But as a assistant professor or like a faculty member, there are many other obligations. So I just, well, I hope that wouldn't cut out too much of the joy from just doing research.
What are the most fun parts of your job as an assistant professor?
Being able to solve problem is very gratifying, and being able to read textbooks and papers, these are all very gratifying, and I get to do that on a daily basis. And I find that if I successfully advise a student, that's also very gratifying in the sense that my advice actually work for the particular student, whether it's career-wise or life-wise or academic-wise. I think that gives him a lot of joy.
And then you have what are some of the things about your job that you don't love?
There are a few. I think the main thing about being a faculty member is that a lot of time you are like running a startup. You are trying to bring the fund and manage the students, by giving them advice and monitor their progress. And in order for your group to function properly. I think this part of the job requires a lot of management skill, a lot of skill that might not be directly related to the research, but they are consequential in the research. So I think these are the part of the job that I don't enjoy a lot, but I kind of have to do it. Basically, being a manager and try to run the group in an organized way. Yeah.
And then you how what would your advice be for people who are considering entering your field?
I think the most important thing for me is to really make sure there's some passion for it. Otherwise, the competition is rather cutthroat, and the success rate, in the sense that getting a faculty position, is not very high. This is a piece of advice my undergrad advisor used to give me. My undergrad advisor, Gordon Cates, he told me I have to be happy no matter like what I get out of it. So it's with a high chance it's once going to fail, and you just have to be happy and satisfied with whatever you're doing.
And you how I know that you grew up and went to high school in China and Hong Kong and Malaysia. Do you think coming to the US with that international perspective has benefited your career and your work in any way?
Well, on the practical side, it definitely helps. That for me, it's helpful for me to communicate with students coming from Asian countries because, well, nowadays instead the Asian population is just very high. So that has been very helpful in terms of understanding their mindset and also maybe I can have form a closer bond with them. So in that sense, that's helpful. Also, it really helps to put things into perspective because sometimes students from different places, they are like differently prepared. Their academic preparations are different if they come from different countries. So my experience helped me to understand these differences and be more understanding about it.
What is the most gratifying thing about your job?
I think being able to solve problem on a daily basis is very gratifying. That's one thing that I really fall back on whenever I feel stressed and whenever I feel unhappy about things. And then I start thinking about the problem I've been thinking, and then this other nonsense just tend to go away.
I've been speaking with Assistant Professor Yuehaw Khoo. Professor, thank you for your time. And course takers, if you enjoyed listening to today's interview, please check out the other ones. You can find out more about the University of Chicago through uchicago.edu or the university's campus in Hong Kong through uchicago.hk.